Hi, good evening. I'm Alison Capper and I'm here tonight from Stocks Farm in Suckley. I'm just going to wait a minute or two just to get us to 6 p.m, which is my go live slot. And of course, when I'm on video, I can't see the time. I'm not wearing a watch tonight either, so I might need somebody to tell me when my 15 to 20 minutes is up, but I'm going to do my best. So, I'm going to start. Good evening. I'm Alison Capper and I'm talking to you tonight from Stocks Farm in Suckley, one of the most beautiful places in the world, I think. It's stunningly beautiful here. In a minute I'm going to show you my view. And our farm farms hops and apples for the supermarkets and cider apples. And we've farmed here since 1962, so we're in our 58th harvest from my father-in-law, who is still very much a partner in the business. The business is run by my husband, myself and my father-in-law. And we consider ourselves just to be the custodians for the current generation. So I'm just going to give you a walking guided tour of our orchards and hop yards tonight and just bring it all to life, I hope. What I do need to do is turn this around so that you can see my view. Look at that. So you are looking at the Malvern Hills. Malvern Hills are there in the background, and we are on what is considered to be Elgar's route. And Elgar is a famous composer who was inspired by this landscape, and it's no surprise. We've got the setting sun over there. And we have standing here in an orchard with orchards all around us. So I'm just giving you the full 360-degree view. This orchard is an orchard of Unami or Junami. Depends on whether you're from the continent or from Britain. Spelt Junami. Junami. And you can see they're laden with apples. This orchard is only 2 years old, and I think there's a stunning amount of fruit on it tonight. I have to say it's been lit up by this beautiful sunset. But I just want to talk to you a little bit about what exactly is going on in this orchard, because there's an awful lot actually. So first of all, we've got stunning fruit. It's been a difficult year for us this year. We have had 2 frosts and 2 hail events. So we have got some marks on fruit. I can just see here some hail damage. Can you see that? That won't go into a supermarket sale. And there's some more there behind the cobweb, if you can see. So that fruit will have to go for juice. Here we have got a pollinator tree, a crabapple pollinator. Look, isn't that beautiful? I hope you all love crabapple jelly. So these apples actually aren't quite ready for harvest, but I'm just going to take one off and just try. It's a beautiful red and green apple. And what's really special about this is that, as well as tasting amazing and being really juicy, it is really, really juicy. It's got beautiful coloured flesh, but it stores really, really well. So that means that we can pick this apple in October, and we can store it and be selling it all the way through until next July and August, which is stunning. It means that we can provide UK consumers with British apples 12 months of the year. So that's why we love it. But there's so many more things I want to show you in this orchard. First of all, there's some funny stuff on the ground. Can you see it? It looks like string. Well, we're hop growers, and this is last year's hop waste. And we use hop waste as a mulch underneath the trees, and it has 3 really good properties. The first thing is that it prevents weeds, so that's good because it means we use less weed control, less pesticide. The second thing is it's a great soil conditioner. The worms love it. They take it down into the soil, and that's brilliant for the soil conditions underneath. And it's also brilliant because it prevents transpiration, so it prevents the evaporation of the liquid, the rain and the rainfall in the soil. So that's really, really good news. Now I'm just going to come to the end of the orchard row. This is what most orchards around the country look like. They have grass strips between the closely planted, very modern, this is a very modern, we call it a fruit wall system. What we've started to do, and it does get slightly out of control, we have started to introduce wildflower rows into our orchards, and in this case we've got 1 grass and 2 wildflower and then 1 grass. I'll explain why in a sec. But this is a brilliant way of us introducing more pollinators and actually more predators to help us deal with the pests into our orchard. So really, really good initiative here. Nobody's paying us to do it. We just believe that this is the way forward for modern orcharding systems. So wildflower rows everywhere. We do what we can all over the farm to try and look after our really important pollinators. And I just want to take you over here because we've got, as well as having beehives on the farm, which come from within the village actually, they come in and out of the farm from local beekeepers, we have also got some bee hotels, and these are dotted around all over the farm. And if you can just see in there, those little holes in there are just brilliant spaces for solitary bees to find their home. Now, I'm just walking down. This is a more established orchard. This orchard is actually 5 years old, so much more established. And this is an orchard of red Windsor. And I've come in here not to show you any fruit because we've picked this. So you can see there's the odd apple still left, just got missed. There's one. But the reason that I've come in here is I just want to show you something else. Can you see that little brown plastic disc hanging on the tree? That's really important. I'm going to talk about it as I walk. That is a really important new initiative because those contain a little chemical that helps us control codling moth. And it helps us control codling moth by sterilising the males, so it stops them reproducing. And that is really, really helpful because it means we don't have to spray the orchard. It means we just keep the pest threshold under control. I hope that makes sense. And you can see here, I've just come to the other side of the windbreak and we have another new, I'm just going to turn my camera around to give you a landscape view. Beautiful, oh, it's telling me I can't do that. I'm really sorry, I didn't know I couldn't do that. We've got a beautiful new Gala Orchard. So we've talked about Junami, brilliant storage potential and a beautiful taste, sweet, crisp and juicy. Gala is the #1 eating apple in the UK. And I'm just going to walk down here as I talk and just tell you about this investment. So you can see, again, very modern post and wirework system, we call it. We're trying to grow a wall of fruit. Now these trees are baby trees. You can see the odd apple, which I think is extraordinary because these trees were only planted in June. You can see the ground has been tilled, it's all looking pretty perfect, and that's because we've just seeded this orchard to add the same wildflower mix, and we're going to again do 2 in every 3 rows with wildflowers, and then we're going to do grass strips on every 3rd row. I was going to explain why. We have, for when we do need to spray in this orchard, we have what's called a 3-row sprayer. So it literally can spray 3 rows at a time. So those grass alleyways are for the sprayer to travel on, and the 2 wildflower rows are there so that, because they're not being driven on, they don't need grass. And that's our way of making sure we've got as much, as I say, pollinators and predators in the orchard as possible. Just a bit more about this investment. It all looks very straight, doesn't it? That's because these trees were planted using GPS. just like the GPS in your car, and that all works brilliantly here until we get a dodgy signal, and then we can end up with a wonky road, but it's okay because Richard, my husband, always makes sure that the signal is working before we start. So what we do is we plant the trees first, and as they go in the ground, they're stepped in. There is a team coming in behind, stepping the trees in and adding these rabbit guards. The rabbit guard is really important to protect the baby tree because rabbits and hares, actually we've got a lot of hares on the farm, they will nibble, and if they nibble the bark, that will kill the tree. So that's obviously something we want to avoid. And you can see we've also added some mulch here in this orchard, some of the hot waste mulch. So we put in the tree and the tree guard, and then we come in afterwards and we create the framework, the posts and the wire work that you can see here. Quite important because we have to support this trellis of fruit, because when the fruit is established, it's actually, these orchards have got a lot of weight to support, and you can still see this amazing view of the Malverns in the distance. Just stunning. Right, I'm going to just wander across now because I want to show you a hop yard that's been picked and just talk about hops. So just crossing, this is a public footpath on the farm. It isn't a bridle way, but lots of people do ride on the farm, and we're very happy to share the farm with as many people as possible. So this, I'm just going to give you a sweep, is a hop yard that was picked. It's actually one of our first to be picked this year. And this is Goldings hops, and Goldings is one of the oldest hop varieties. It was first discovered in 1790, and it's still one of the most important British hops. It's got a beautiful honey, floral, spicy aroma, and it is a brilliant bittering hop, and it is favoured by brewers all over the world. Now, I don't know whether you can see, but we've got a new crop coming here. So where the hops have been harvested, you can just see that is the stem of the plant that's been left. And what we will do is we will come down here and take out these bines, we call it bine cutting, and there will be nothing left over the winter, and that's because we don't want any disease to go down through these into the ground. But what we don't like in the winter is bare soil. So I've got some lovely comments coming in, thank you to those that are commenting. We've got some beautiful cover crop that's just gone in and it's just emerging. The cover crop in the winter is really important. I'm going to walk and talk and explain cover crops. It's really, really important, the cover crop, because it protects the soil from erosion, and a cover crop also, the way that we will utilise it, we won't harvest it. We will either mow it or we will turn it over and into the soil, and that again is a great soil conditioner, and we will probably do that 2 or 3 times because it's fairly vigorous, the cover crop. We use, you could see, I'll just come back down here, the cover crop that we use is not a broadleaf, looks like grass actually at the moment, but it's black oat, rye and phacelia. And the reason we don't use a broadleaf is that broadleaf plants can be a host for verticillium wilt, and that's a disease that hops get and can kill them. So we don't want anything that will affect the future viability of the crop. I'm walking now because I want to go and show you some hops that are actually growing, because it's a bit dull looking at a yard that's been picked. Just some useful, interesting anecdotes. In Herefordshire and Worcestershire, we call the fields that hops grow in hop yards. In Kent, you may have heard the expression hop garden. And we believe that was a good bit of tax evasion by our friends, our fellow hop farming friends in Kent, at the turn of the last century. By calling them hop gardens, they didn't have to pay tax apparently, which I think is very interesting. That's, and the other little bit of dialect to do with hops is what we dry our hops in. Here in Herefordshire and Worcestershire, we call them hop kilns. in Kent they're oast houses and they're different shapes. So I'm just going to come back over to this stunning orchard. I'm just crossing back over the footpath. I tried to come to a part of the farm where I could show you quite a lot in quite a short space of time, so if I get out of breath, that's why. So this is back to the Gala Orchard that I was showing you, the brand new, recently planted, and I'm just going to walk down this headland because I'm going to head for some hops. I'm just checking my notes as we go to make sure that I haven't missed anything. I was talking about the little disc that we use to sterilise the codling moth. That's really important because we try to use as little chemical as we can. Farmers use something called integrated pest management, and that really is all about only acting when you need to. So as a farmer, obviously they're really expensive, all these chemicals, and they're not great for the environment, so we try and do as little as we can, and integrated pest management allows us to do that. That's really important. I spend quite a lot of time, one of the roles that I have, as well as working here on the farm, is chairing the NFU, National Farmers Union, Horticulture and Potatoes. Things that are important, sorry, I'm just making sure that I'm not covering up my microphone. One of the important things is that we make sure that we are minimising our use of pesticides, but still able to protect our crop, because apples like these, actually 80% of what we do for our apples, just come in and look at this beautiful fruit. Isn't that gorgeous? That's a Gala apple. 80% of what we do is protect this crop from fungal infection called scab. So when you see us out spraying orchards, remember, most of what we're trying to do is protect our fruit from the amazing British climate. It's my belief that we have got the greatest tasting apples in the world, and that is because they ripen more slowly than almost any other apple growing region. So we're just leaving this beautiful, stunning new investment of ours, Gala Orchard, and I'm now going to come over and talk about some hops that haven't been harvested yet. Somebody's just put up a lovely comment about me knowing up my stuff. I'm finding walking, talking and concentrating, it's really testing my multitasking skills, I have to say. So variety called Olicana, and you can see we have got some amazing hops up there. Olicana is a really lovely new variety that's come about through a private breeding programme. One of our customers is Charles Fairham Limited, and Charles Fairham run a breeding programme, and Olicana has come out of that breeding programme. When you open up an Olicana hop cone and smell it, the aroma that you get is mango and passion fruit. And it's fair to say that the brewers love this hop. Now I'm just walking down because I want to get to some Jester, which is just a bit further down. And actually when we get there you'll see it looks quite different. These have still got a little bit of a way to go in terms of maturity. You can just see that the hops are starting to touch at the top of the row. We call that holding hands. And you can see, as I look down the row, that if they were all holding hands in the top, it would be very dark in there. And we try not to encourage the hops. We try not to get them to grow too much, because if they start to hold hands and the row gets dark, really dark, then we don't get them to hop down. So if I just take this hop vine here on the end, you can see there's hops in the top, and there are beautiful hops all the way down, and that's what we call hopping down. That's really important. So just a bit of an explanation for those who've never seen hops growing before. An amazing plant that grows from about my hip height to, as you can see, they're about 5.5, 6 metres tall. And it puts on that growth from beginning to middle of May to the end of June. It literally, the plant goes from hip height to the top in about 6 weeks, and then puts out lateral growth, the sideways shoots, in July, and in August it comes into burr, which is like a little bit of fluff. That's what it looks like, and that fluff then turns into the hop cone, and the hop cone is the bit that the brewer wants. So if for the uninitiated, you're looking at this amazing plant, and all the brewer wants is the beautiful hop cone, the flower, and it's in there that all the magic happens. So in that hop flower, in the cone, as we call it, there are over 400 hop oils, all sorts of different oils, and those oils contain all the magic, all the aromas, all the beautiful flavour. Now, I don't know whether I can do this live on camera with only one hand, but I'm going to try. So I've just got to the Jester. You can see it's quite a different vine. It's much heavier, loads more hops on it actually this year. Really beautiful hop. And Jester is full of blackcurrant and citrus flavour notes. Now sorry about my monkey thumb, I dislocated it this year. That beautiful cone, that's what the brewer wants. So how do we get these beautiful hop cone flowers off this triffid-like plant? What we have to do is take the whole plant out of the hop yard on a trailer, and we take it to a picking machine where we hang this bine. You see the base of the bine down there. We hang it upside down and we strip it in a big machine called a Brough hop picker, and we're then left with a lot of leaf and hop, and we've got this amazing machine which separates the leaf and the hop. Some people say that the machine is quite Heath Robinson. It's lots of, excuse me, I'm just bending down to get my notes. It's lots of belts, sticky belts, gravity, air, fans, and that separates the leaf from the hop. And once we've got just hop left, then we can actually dry the hops, and they are dried for 6 to 8 hours in a hop kiln, and once they're dried, they're then baled and they go out to brewers all over the world. So a few killer stats for you from the farm. We will bale enough hops this year to brew about 46 million pints of beer, and we will pick by hand enough eating apples to provide about 10 million individual apples to consumers. Our apples go off to Tesco and Aldi, and we're opening up other customers all over the world. Actually, we're starting to export our apples, and we export our hops all over the world as well. So what pests or birds do we regularly try to fend off? I'm just trying to look at the questions. So in hops, the biggest pest issues are damson hop aphid, which is a bit of a nightmare because it can literally come in and eat a crop like this in a week. And also spider, which gets in when it's really hot, and that just damages the hop and prevents it growing properly. On our apples, actually our biggest challenge is really scab, and then we've got things like moths, which give us a challenge in the spring, and they can leave, if we don't get on top of the moths, they can actually damage the fruit and make it unsaleable. And before we can actually harvest any fruit, and it's the same with our hops, we need to do quite a lot of tests of samples. I'm just going to walk back this way. There's one more thing I want to tell you about. We do quite a lot of tests. So we do dry matter content tests. That tells us whether the hop or the apple is ripe, and also will help us with an indication about how well it's going to store. And we also, on the hops, we will come along and actually smell the hop, feel the hop flower to check whether it's ripe, and with our fruit we're checking sugars using something called a refractometer. We check pressures, so that's how hard, how firm is the apple. We check starches using something called iodine, and we also are looking for colour, and actually that's important in hops and it's important on our apples. Brewers are like chefs. They buy with their eyes. So it's really important that the hops are a lovely green colour, that they look healthy, that they don't look like they've got any disease. And the same with our apples, really important that the colour is there, and that we've got lovely red rosy apples to put on supermarket shelves. I know some people will say, well, really, does it matter? But yes, it does. I've got a spider, as in spider. It's a red spider. It is a tiny little spider. You need a magnifying glass to see it. Do we brew our own beer? Somebody is asking. Richard and I don't, but on the farm we have a brewery called the Hop Shed, very appropriate name, and it's in our old chicken shed, and Sarah and Hanny run the Hop Shed, and I'm really proud to say mostly brewing award-winning beers using almost exclusively Stocks Farm hops. The beers have won all sorts of great taste awards, so really exciting to have that on the farm. As with all of us this year, they've been affected by COVID-19, but they have been brewing throughout and bottling and sending beer out all over the country. I'm just going to switch my camera around for a sec, because as I walk, I'm out of breath because I'm walking uphill now. I just finally want to take you over to have a look at some cider apples, which are just across this path. Everybody's been really badly affected by COVID this year, and many business sectors, and I think we're all, it's been a really hard year for everybody, but with the closure of pubs for over 3 months, that's affected the market for both hops and cider. Brewers haven't been brewing as much beer, cider makers haven't been making as much cider. I'm just going to turn my camera around now so you can just see what I can see. And these very different trees look much bigger. These are cider apple trees, and these are mechanically harvested. We don't pick these by hand. We come along and we shake the tree using a grabber on the front of a tractor, and grabs each tree and shakes all the fruit off, and then we scoop it all up, harvesting using sort of paddles. All of this beautiful fruit isn't required this year by our customer, so all of this fruit will be left to fall to the ground and rot in the orchard, which is really rather depressing. Some cider makers are asking growers to only send a proportion of their fruit, and they only want to pay for a proportion. Some are asking growers to send the fruit to an AD plant, which is an anaerobic digester, so that's where food waste goes. And in our case, we've chosen to let the fruit fall to the ground. Our cider maker that we're on contract to is paying us for the fruit, so they're being very fair. So yeah, there's all sorts of difficulties with COVID-19 that were completely unforeseen. I've got some walkers behind me with their dogs, which would be unfair to put them on live camera, so I won't. So yes, a really tough and difficult year on many levels, and with my representation role for the industry, it feels like there's just been problems everywhere I look this year. But anyway, Richard and I are looking forward to a better year next year, where we don't have any frost, we don't have any hail, and hopefully we all start to see an answer to COVID-19. I think I'm going to be quiet now. I'm looking to see whether there are any other questions. Not seeing any come in, so I'm going to say thank you ever so much for listening, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of the autumn, and fingers crossed the weather starts to be a bit kinder to all of us. It's been beautiful recently. What we don't want now is the same sort of torrential rain we had last winter. Fingers crossed. So thanks for listening. Thanks very much for coming to Stocks Farm here on the Herefordshire-Worcestershire border.